Welcome back to another ItsyBitsyBuild tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to make this teeny tiny apple orchard, and I've used a number of different techniques including Cricut, woodwork and polymer clay to achieve the hyper-realistic look you see here. I've left a full list of items you'll need in the description below. So let's get started. The base of our project is going to be this little glass hanging terrarium, and this one came with a hook at the top and some jute string to hang it up. You can find them from most craft stores and they come in different shapes and sizes, so use your creativity here. We're going to start with some sticky textured dirt. I used some styrofoam balls here for texture and then coloured them brown with acrylic paint and mixed some glue. You need to work fast so the glue doesn't dry out, to spread the glue across the base. Then we're going to cut out some brown felt. I went for this lighter and darker brown shade to imitate the different dirt layers. I used some artificial grass with a paper backing. We don't want a thick material underneath because this is a very delicate project. Cut out a circle from the artificial grass to place on top of the dirt. You don't want to stick it down just yet, it's simply for measuring the right size and placement. So I got these trees and they have a little plastic hook on the end, which makes it easier to stick them into the ground and hold them in place. You can find them on eBay, Wish and other train model stores. So the trunk of these trees had a grey tinge to them, so I used a brown marker to colour in the trunk area and make it look a little bit more realistic. Using a thick pin tool or a safety pin, poke some holes through the felt layer and the grass paper, and then you're going to wiggle the tree inside that hole until the hook holds it in place. Since we're making an orchard here, you'll need to make sure that your holes are in symmetrical rows. Now, trees are not typically a uniform colour, so I've used some of this lighter artificial moss to stick to the trees, which adds a bit of texture and pattern, and it also helps patch some holes in the tree branches. Now, when I was doing this, I noticed some of the moss fell onto the grass and it gave a really good fallen leaf effect. So for the apples sitting on the trees, we're going to use red foam beads. You can find these red foam beads on most craft sites. So dab the apple onto the glue before sticking it onto the trees. This makes sure you're using a minimal amount of glue. Then place the apples at random across all of the trees in your orchard. I used a brown marker here to add some texture to both the apples and the leaves because we want it to look perfectly imperfect. So you want to place some of the apples on the ground that have fallen from the tree. I've also used 1 or 2 brown ones to make it look really realistic. So for the apples sitting in our wooden crates, we're going to use polymer clay or Fimo. With the sizing, you'll want them to be slightly bigger than the apples on the tree because they've been freshly picked. So roll the clay into tiny balls and they should vary slightly in size. Then get a pin and poke a hole into the top of the apple. Don't poke all the way through, we just want enough to be able to stick the stem inside. So for the stems, I've used this brown polymer clay, and you're going to need to roll it out very thin. Once we finish the apples and the stems, we're going to bake our Fimo in the oven to harden it. Once baked, it's time to colour the apples. I've used these soft pastels, which I've drawn onto my palm, and then I'm carefully rolling the apples across the colour. It distributes the colour evenly and adds a nice texture. Don't worry, it washes off easily with soap and water. So then we're going to trim our stalks down to size about 1 to 2 millimeters. Place a dab of super glue onto a flat surface, and then using your tweezers, pick up the stalks and dip the end of the stalk into the glue, and then you can easily stick them inside the apple hole that you made earlier. This is very fiddly work. Get a red marker to touch up any areas you want to add more vibrant red to your apples. Be sure to cut off any stalks that are too long. And look at these tiny apples, aren't they adorable? Now onto the apple box. I used 1 millimeter thick basswood, which is a pretty flexible and fibrous wood you can get from most hardware stores. First, cut out the base of the box, which should be a rectangle shape. Then you'll want to cut out 2 end square pieces and use the length of the base to get the right size. You'll need 2 end pieces. Apply a small amount of super glue and then stick the ends onto the base like this. Then we're going to cut out some very thin strips of wood and trim them down to the length of the box. They can be a little longer because we're going to trim them again once they're stuck down. Carefully place 3 strips across the length of the box, evenly spread out. Then we're going to trim any excess, either using a knife or some scissors. After the box is assembled, carefully glue your apples inside the box. You'll want to use a tacky glue for this part because super glue can leave a white film on the apples. I've used this Sculpey Gloss because it leaves a nice sheen on the apples. I also made a logo for the apple box using the Cricut Maker. I located an apple drawing on Google Images, save your chosen image, and upload it into the Cricut design space. Use the wand tool to remove any space on the image. You'll also want to preview for any jagged edges and use the erase tool to clear these off your image. We're going to save this as a cut image. Once uploaded into Design Space, we're going to split this image into 2 for our 2 layers using the contour. So first we want to select the whole apple picture, and that will be red, and then we're going to select just the leaf part, which will be green. Then we want to shrink our apple down to size. I measured the apple box before I came into Design Space. You can also put the leaf part over the red apple to get the size of the leaf just right. And then we're ready to cut. Select premium vinyl and stick the vinyl onto your standard grip mat and then press start. The Cricut does a really good job of cutting these fine parts out on the vinyl, and you can really see the detail. We're going to pick off the back of the vinyl and use a tiny square of transfer tape to peel the leaf off the backing and stick it over the top of the red apple. Then we pull both the apple and the leaf off the backing and stick it on the end of the apple crate. And doesn't that just pop? So the last part is the ladder. You're going to need some thick silver cardstock or foil board like this. We're going to add some letters, and the font I want you to use is Cricut Sans. We're going to type a capital A, and this will form part of the ladder ends. Make some duplications of the A, and you're going to need 4 to make one ladder. So then we're going to get the square shape, and we're going to remove the padlock so that you can shape it into a rectangle. Drag it over to the letter and measure the size. You don't want it to be thicker than the letter width, because then the ladder rungs will jut out. So once you're happy with your ladder rungs, duplicate that shape multiple times. I've made some spares just in case, but you'll want at least 8 for a complete ladder, 4 on each side. Then we're going to make the cut, and you want to select medium cardstock for this thickness of card. Go over to your Cricut machine, load up the cardstock and commence the cut. And this is what it should look like when it's all done. After peeling your ladder pieces from the Cricut mat, use a fine tipped glue bottle to stick your 2 A's together, with the silver parts facing out. Then use a silver paint marker to cover any white parts of the cardstock, remembering that this orchard can be viewed from all angles, so you want the silver to show on all sides. Glue your rectangles onto one side of the A using tweezers, because this is very tiny work. I used a tacky glue because it's more pliable to work with and it dries quickly. Once you've stuck all the ladder rungs onto one side, stick the second A onto the top. You may need to reposition some of the rungs if they've become displaced. And there you have it, a tiny metal ladder. Let's put it all together. And there you have it, a teeny tiny apple orchard. I hope you enjoyed this video and it inspires you to make your own miniature apple orchard. Leave a comment below if you have any questions. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you'd like to watch more mini content, and we'll see you next time.